today we have like a group of like four professional person engaging with startups. So we got like 3 tech company and one and one company is not really tech, Johnson and Johnson. So it's quite interesting to don't only having like tech companies. So before maybe to go like a bit more on the details, I will just ask if each of you can just introduce yourself, what you're doing, and a little bit more about your company too. So Sandy.
My name is Sandy Carter, and I am IBM's General Manager for our Startup Accelerator and VC area. So we really look after startups. We have lots of things we're going to talk about, like an entrepreneur program and smart camp competition, as well as some things with accelerators and incubators as well. And I'm really pleased to be here. I moved to California about a year ago.
Hi, my name is Peter Bershatsky. I'm with Amazon. I'm in the corporate development group focused specifically on Amazon Web Services. So AWS obviously has a huge variety of startups as customers, but we also work with them as partners. I can also speak a little bit to some of the work that Amazon does more broadly with startups, both with Alexa and the Alexa Fund, and also on the retail side where there are hundreds of thousands of third-party sellers on the marketplace.
Hi there, Tatiana Beldock. I'm a new ventures lead for Johnson & Johnson Innovation. And what we do at J&J Innovation is we source, catalyze, and invest in external innovation opportunities that are of strategic interest to J&J. We do this in 4 ways, which I'll just quickly run through now, and then we'll get into deeper detail. We've got our innovation centers globally, our incubators also globally, venture investing, as well as traditional M&A.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Ludovic Yorick. I am with Salesforce. I'm the head of startup relations. So what that means is that we have a lot of flavors to engage with startups. We invest, we partner, we help go to markets. We also announced a specific fund on our platform a couple of weeks ago, as well as an incubator. So we do a lot of things. So we can go through those. I've been in this space for a little bit. You know, I used to run the BizSpark program at Microsoft, which was kind of in the first program. So always good to talk about those different ways corporation can help founders, obviously, but I think in a room also help some of you investors or governments to engage with that community.
Thank you. So what we found when we did this report, it was that the main thing for corporates to engage with startup, it was across like corporate venturing. And what's interesting today is like all of you guys are doing corporate venturing. But my question is like, how do you differentiate compared to other corporation doing venture investment? And also how do you differentiate compared to VC? Basically like what is your unfair advantage compared to any VC for startup who are looking to fundraising?
Okay, cool. So just disclaimer, I'm not part of the ventures team, so we work with them. But the ventures team, first of all, they partner with VCs. We always co-invest. We very unusually lead investments. And the whole idea is we bring some sort of unfair advantage beyond the money, right? I mean, Salesforce Ventures is purely a strategic fund. So we invest in companies who are building on a platform who could leverage basically assets that Salesforce can provide, whether it's access to our executives, you know, speaking at Dreamforce, access to our customers. So I think it's really focused on, you know, the who and who can help and how can they leverage access and affiliation to Salesforce above and beyond the money itself.
We look at everything that we do at J&J Innovation is investing, and not just the equity investment checks that we write, but whenever we do one of the 300 partnerships that we've written checks for with startups over the past 3 years through the innovation centers, we think of those as a portfolio of investments as well. And for everything, it's all about what is of strategic interest to Johnson & Johnson and what we can bring to the startups to see if there's a potential future onboarding event where we can bring it into our pipeline. And so very similar, it sounds like, in terms of philosophy there. And in terms of our venture fund also co-invests with other life science organizations on the venture side. And in terms of what differentiates us, I think it's the real diversification and the global reach. So we're in pharma as well as medical device as well as consumer. We also focus a lot on technology. And so it's really leveraging that very broad platform, and that's what we bring to the startups.
So just one quick clarification is that Amazon as a company does not have a venture arm for all of Amazon. I work specifically with AWS, and AWS will invest in companies and partners on a case-by-case basis, but there's not a specific venture arm that's dedicated to it. An exception to that is the Alexa Fund. Alexa is the fund that's dedicated to startups that are building skill sets and tools around the Echo platform. And so they've dedicated a big sum of money specifically to nurture that ecosystem with both early stage and later stage startups to help build up the robust skills. I think it was announced just recently that there's over 1,000 skills based on third-party developers written for the Alexa. And so that's an obvious case of where there's differentiation because there's access to the roadmap and what's happening coming next with Alexa and the distribution there. On AWS, sometimes there are partners that we want to have a more strategic relationship with that can really help bring the platform forward in a more accelerated way, but there's not a dedicated fund in the same way.
Yeah, I would say we're also very similar. We only do co-investing. It's not part of my team, and we only invest in Watson. So you guys invest in Alexa, we invest in Watson. And you heard on the main tent today, sprinkle a little AI on. Watson is cognitive. So as we do those co-investments, we were really looking to seed the market as IBM was first in this space, in AI and machine learning and beyond. And so part of our differentiation was to work with the venture community to seed the market with the power that Watson could bring to the entrepreneur.
So one of the other way we found amongst corporate to work with startup is through corporate accelerators. What's interesting is today we just have one of you with IBM offering this kind of program where in the same time Salesforce and Johnson & Johnson are more focused on incubator. So I would like to know more about why did you pick up this way to collaborate with startup, and maybe you can have also the point of view of AWS, maybe why not doing any incubator or accelerator at Amazon?
So we have an accelerator today in Tel Aviv, Israel. And it was really our proof of concept. We wanted to see how IBM could work with an accelerator situation. We partnered with Price Waterhouse there, and we've now had 2 classes go through our accelerator with great success. Our most recent class had 60 graduates in it, and we're seeing tremendous traction in the market from especially a handful of those companies who are doing really quite well. In addition to our accelerators, we do have incubators and innovation spaces. We have innovation spaces and centers in probably 30 cities around the world. So we have a global program. We also have a garage in San Francisco and Toronto and London and New York. And the garage is a place where both corporates can come to learn from startups. So we bring major corporations there, and they look at our Blue Mix Garage methodology, but we also have a place for entrepreneurs to come and to get help, technical and beyond, from some of the best, maybe in Watson or Internet of Things or those type of things. So our strategy is to do both accelerators, incubators, as well as these garages that can really help both corporates and startups meet, but also can help in the entrepreneur's growth.
I don't think I have a concise answer to why not an accelerator specifically. I do know that there's a wide range of programs that Amazon has for startups that collectively are pretty impressive. We have Startup Loft here in San Francisco where some of our most senior technical resources in AWS are always present. And so startups will come and ask for specific advice on how to configure things with really serious scalability problems. We have an Activate program to get startups up and running with a pretty significant amount of credits on AWS. And we have the partner network that lets people not only become customers of AWS, but helps people get access to specific services within AWS if there's ways that they are additive to the AWS platform or if there's go-to-market opportunities. And so we take a lot of great pain, a lot of great touch points about how to help people work more effectively with AWS. One thing we don't hear from customers is, oh, if only you could get us, some space with a few cubes. I mean, I'm exaggerating to make the point, but we find that the demand from these customers is much more about very specific technical things we can do to help them.
So we've got, at J&J, we've got a network of 6 incubators across North America. It's our JLabs platform, and we've got 6 incubators. 3 of them are in California, South San Francisco, San Diego. The others are in Boston, Houston, and Toronto. And there we've got 130 companies, startups in residence, and we've got about a 10% selection rate for that incubator program. Everything is indeed screened to be of interest for J&J, as well as based on talent and the science, the technology, the merits of the startup itself. We also participate a bit in accelerators. We've got a health and wellness accelerator that we're running now through plug and play. And then finally, I'll touch on our innovation centers, which is really the bread and butter of J&J Innovation, and that's global. We've got 4 innovation centers, one in Menlo Park, one in Boston, another in London, and another in Shanghai. They started about 3 years ago, and since then we've screened 3,800 opportunities and signed approximately 300 deals. And so those are all of the different ways in which we engage in startups.
Cool. So accelerators, first of all, you need to do a lot of work to educate your colleagues about what's an accelerator, what's an incubator. So it's always a pain, right? So since I'm assuming the room knows pretty much the difference with all those things, co-working space, incubator, accelerators, we decided not to do accelerators, because it takes a lot of work. First of all, you look at the 500 startup people, tech start, it's hard. So what we think about also having a relatively small team is we go where the community is, we go at the accelerators and try to explain what we have to offer, and basically scale this way. I think accelerators are very good when you want to try innovation on a specific theme. It could be seasonal, it could be Alexa, it could be Watson, it could be something where you're telling the ecosystem, okay, it's very clear. The reason why we want you to come to the accelerator is not to actually, versus, YC or 500 or anything else, is because we give you an unfair advantage, which is access to this particular technology, this particular vertical, or access to customers, something very unique. So we might do that in the future, it's not out of the question, but right now, above and beyond the traditional, general, global self-service online startup program that we have at Salesforce and the venture arm, basically we announced an incubator, which is basically, okay, you know what, you might not eligible to funding yet, or you might be too big, you don't really care about having Salesforce money, but you think that the brand affiliation to Salesforce, number one, and then number two, the proximity to talent and engineering might be useful for you. Maybe it's a good fit for you to join that incubator. We're going through the criteria and the application process as we speak, because we just announced that recently. That would be the first here in San Francisco where we have all those assets. But I think running an accelerator takes an extra work that at least we're not ready for, and we would need to have a real reason to do that.
I think it's, if you're an investor in the room, if you're a venture capitalist or an angel, I think the interesting thing across all of us is that we offer technical support to your portfolio companies. You also see access to clients and access to brand. That's what I picked up. It's pretty consistent across the board. So, if you're working with a set of portfolio companies, those are 3 items that you could say a corporation could bring to the table.
And many that we can do at scale where you don't actually need the formality of the program and the demo day and all that extra work, which is great, right? I mean, in terms of, visibility and somewhat PR for the companies, but also PR for the companies. I've been selected by, the IBM incubator, some accelerator, so that's great, but sometimes you can provide that at scale without going through that, heavy lifting, so to say.
So what we found on this report is also like a lot of corporations offering like startup program like Bespark or what you're doing with IBM Bluemix, but very few companies are really doing like the technical support like what most of you are doing, like AWS is doing. This is quite rare, in fact. So all of you guys are doing like a lot of different things to engage with startup. You have like between 2 to almost like 5 or 6 different programs to engage with startups. So can you tell us more about any synergy between all your programs and how you plug then also those programs and startup to your different business units?
So I'll start. Yeah? Okay. So overall, our program is called the Global Entrepreneur Program. That's our overarching brand, if you would. It gets you access to all of the technology inside of IBM. So that would be Watson or Internet of Things or our cloud platform, Bluemix. Inside of there, as part of the Entrepreneur Program, you get free cloud credits, much like my friend from Amazon talked about, $120,000 worth of free cloud credits, which is very helpful for a startup when they're first beginning. But in addition to that, you get go-to-market assistance. So for instance, we just had Alpha Modus, one of our startups who was featured in an IBM ad, one of our most successful ads. We had a startup that was featured in our big sales conference, which gets them linked to the sales team. We've had different folks like Grush, one of our big startups who just won America's Greatest Makers. So that go-to-market piece we think is really essential. And then we also help with mentoring and business modeling advice. So we have things under that like our Smart Camp program that we partner with Launch, or Jason Kakanis that you heard in the other room, where we do a pitch competition, Shark Tank, and we have venture capitalists and different mentors from around, plus some of our customers come and mentor different startups to provide them with some of the business model help as well. We were just in India last week, and there we did our first video Smart Camp, where we did all the applications by video. We got hundreds of thousands of applicants that come in, and each one gets some sort of mentoring along the way. So I would say that would kind of frame what we do, all under one umbrella, the Global Entrepreneur Program.
How do you link then those startups to your business unit?
So how do we link the startups to our business unit? So we look at what the startup is trying to accomplish, and we have both digital support as well as face-to-face support, and we'll link them in. Like Trillia, for instance, was one of the first on Bluemix. IQ was highlighted with Bluemix. So as we see a great fit, either for a capability that we need or something that enhances what we do or helps the marketplace, we'll connect them across the board into the business units as well.
I think the question of synergy across the different efforts is an interesting one. I think each of the different startup relationships at AWS, and I'll speak just for AWS because that's what I know, each is response to a specific customer need or a customer demand. And so there's a whole team of folks that work to putting them together and bring the right resources together. But I think the broader question is, how does it provide synergy for all of AWS? And the thing about Amazon is that it's organized each in a group of very fast-moving teams that are rolling out new AWS services all the time. So it's the responsibility of the person with the relationship with the startup, whether it's the person at the loft or the person who's the partner manager or the person who's in charge of the Activate program. If there's specific needs, they can bring those startups into the individual services teams, whether it's compute or storage or database or one of our newer services. And so those relationships are all at a service-by-service level, and it's mediated by the person with the individual relationship with the entrepreneur.
So first, your first question of how our different programs all fit together, it's all based on stage. So if it's very early stage company, it could be incubated at JLabs. And if the science and the team are all really compelling and it's strategic interest of the company, then it could move on to become an innovation center deal, a partnership, et cetera. And a reasonable number of our JLabs companies are in discussions with folks. And at the Innovation Center, then, a deal could be struck, and at some point down the road, there could be an onboarding. If the company, it could come along with an equity check through our venture investments. Then as the company gets much larger, there could be an acquisition, et cetera. So it's all based on stage. It's how we kind of think about those four things. And then to answer your second question, about how it gets linked in to our organization. That's actually a really critical part of what we do. So for example, in our innovation centers, you've got a new venture lead like myself, but we're partnered with somebody who sits in the innovation centers, but they report into R&D. And so they're actually part of the business, evaluating all of the technologies with the framework of knowing what the strategic priorities are from an external innovation perspective. And so that way you're always talking to someone in R&D from a science and technology perspective of the business, and you get that feedback all along the way.
Cool, so we have 1 minute left. So quickly, stage as well. Salesforce for Startup, open to all. Incubator, a subset who actually could benefit from it. Post-Accelerator, for instance, will join it. And then a few will get funding. So it's pretty easy to understand, different teams, but we all speak with the same language, the same website, etc. I think the way we link all those activities within the company, for those of you who live in San Francisco, Salesforce is the customer success platform, so that's the customer dictating this. At the end of the day, those startups, they might accept some goodies and free vouchers and all that good stuff from us. We all have fun along the way, but I think the best thing is they need to have access to customers. As far as I know, startup fail because they lack customers, not funding or anything else. The democratization of technology and of entrepreneurship is there. So we're trying to align with the customer. So of course, very tactical things like Dreamforce, account team, all that stuff. But it's really about trying to find a go-to-market. And I would argue that was the original reason why we created a venture capital arm. It was basically to fund companies in our ecosystem who are not growing as fast as we were. they were having questions and incoming requests from our customers. And literally, they couldn't raise as much money or whatever. So we did that. So we're thinking about what the customers are saying. And frankly, they are the one most of the time nominating startup that we should help in some shape or form. So it's a good deal flow as well to have that relationship with the customers.
Thank you. Can we have a last very quick question? Okay, let's take this as a yes. Can you just mention each of you very quickly, like 2 or 3, like thing you are tracking to see the success of your different program? Like, what is your KPI to think like what you're doing is doing well or not?
All right, so reach. I mean, obviously, we still need the quantity, like let the 1,000 flowers bloom. So reach is good. And it's always good to have some poster child. Some companies were really went through those different stages, right? All the way to featuring them in an ad, and all of course we need that. So again, it's a mix of quality and quality. But at the end of the day, I would, at the risk of having you smile, it's again the customer. So the best way we're gonna look at the efficiency, or at least my program, is how many customers would actually be happy and use the technology that we've been helping in some shape or form.
So we obviously quantify everything every stage of the way. So how many companies are at our incubators? How many deals did we do through the innovation centers? How much capital did we deploy in terms of venture capital, et cetera? But at the end of the day, really, since our mission is to build out the pipeline for the future via external innovation, it's all about what percentage of these various startups in these various programs that we have ultimately would get onboarded to be potential products in our portfolio for the long term.
For AWS, it's very easy. It's how many startups are joining AWS each month, and how happy are they on AWS, and are we serving their needs as they scale? It's very, very simple.
Yeah, ours are very similar. So we do look at scale. In the last year and a half, we've had about 8,000 new startups come over to IBM portfolio, which is very impressive. So we look at that. We look at onboarding. So very much like J&J, we want to make sure that customers stay on the platform. That means they're happy with it. And then finally, we look at, will they recommend what we're doing to another entrepreneur? And we think that recommendation is a really important part of what we do. And right now, we're running a very high recommended rate as well.
Awesome. Thank you.